So you said that prestigious is correct because we usually use prestigious with academic, and amiable you said cannot be correct here because amiable means friendly. Yes, it is
Yeah.
positive, but yeah.
So even though it's positive, and in this context we're looking for a positive adjective, it's usually about a person.
So
It's usually
yeah.
applied to a
So
person.
Adam, can you explain the second sentence here?
Mm.
So amiable. Where is the? I mean, here we have. I mean, he as a
Mm.
what do you call this? I forgot. This is a verb, and this
A
is
pronoun.
pronoun.
Yeah.
Sorry, yeah, pronoun. So we don't have a pronouns here. So amiable was the mood
Mm.
of the meeting. So
Yeah, so actually the noun that amiable is being applied to there is mood. So you're right, this is not a person, but a mood is still something that people have rather than it's still about the feelings that people have.
so what
Um,
does this mean? It means that people were amiable, friendly. I mean,
yeah, in that meeting, the people who were there were basically in a good mood. They were friendly.
so okay.
They're not usually amiable. In government departments, I think the you'd assume that they were a little unfriendly or impersonal. Um,
Okay.
I
So
think that I think that some of our staff are amiable most of the time. So in this sentence, so amiable was the mood of the meeting. That is the mood in the meeting was friendly. Um, and that led to a decision being reached. That is, they were able to make a decision because everyone was getting along well.
okay.
So it's not so much about what people are saying, it's about what people are feeling. So, the person in the meeting speaking might be saying, this is a really great, future policy that we're going to embrace, and everyone who's there might be feeling horror because they realize they're all going to lose their jobs.
Mm,
So that's not an amiable meeting, even if someone's trying to describe it in positive terms.
I got it.
So
Perfect.
amiable is really about what is someone's kind of character or what is their mood, like
Yeah,
their feeling.
great.
Yeah.
And also here, which one do you choose here?
I think it has to be countries, diplomatic
Countries.
strategies.
Countries. Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh,
I think the problem with that sentence though is that it seems to be missing an article. So it's quite a long sentence. I'll read the whole thing and see if what I think is happening is happening. Drawing on our strengths in multi-language programs and disciplinary resources, while responding to national and regional strategies, we operate more than 70 research institutes and centers serving as academic think tanks to provide advisory services on language policies, countries' diplomatic strategies, and global public opinion of diplomatic strategies.
the countries. Yeah.
Or it's got to be plural, like countries and then possessive as well. There's something wrong
Yeah.
with that part of the
Exactly.
sentence, which
Yeah.
makes it confusing. But yes, country is the only one that fits because it's about diplomacy, and diplomacy usually takes place
Mhm.
between recognized states. You know.
Perfect.
Mhm.
So, and uh, you said that why here city is not correct because diplomatic strategy is usually related to country. Yep. Is it correct?
That's right. So a city doesn't have a foreign policy
You're
usually,
right. Yeah.
unless it's a city state, like unless it was Singapore or Hong Kong.
You're right. And also,
Um,
university cannot be correct because we don't use a strategy for university, as you said. And what about the last one? Have maintained. Yep.
yeah,
Yeah.
close connection with
Yeah.
international organizations. So these sorts of connections we maintain. Just to go back to the very first item, you also asked about universal.
Yeah. Here.
Um, so universal could have a lot of different meanings. But uh it's usually about relating to the general or the entire universe. Um, and if you're going to say that something was a universal institution, in
It
effect,
existed everywhere. Yeah.
yeah, it exists everywhere or it covers everything.
or
That's
involve
like
everyone. Yeah,
it's
exactly.
actually an interesting word here because the word university, which is about all forms of knowledge about all things, potentially, if not
Yes.
in practice, it almost makes universal redundant. The fact that
Mm,
it's a university, we already understand it as a universal institution. But also we wouldn't apply that adjective to something like an institution very often because it's a very abstract idea.
yeah.
Yeah.
So no, the word that you said, that prestigious is come come with academic institution usually. That was a better thing
I
to
think
remember.
I
Yeah.
think it could be you could say that an institution was universal. You might be doing that to say something like it accepts students, any student or every student who
Yeah.
comes to it.
Perfect.
Yeah.
Let us check these ones too. We if you,
Mm. So we're imagining that the report is kind of like a photograph. Like it's a momentary picture of what things are like. So they're using that kind of metaphor of the
the
snapshot.
snapshot. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, and we're then imagining that they're handing that over.
So it should be
So
delivered. Perfect. Yeah.
yeah, so the Measuring National Wellbeing program are handing over probably to the government.
And
Um,
updated. You said, I think, here.
yeah, and so that it's what they're saying is that they expect to update it each year after that. So they'll be giving them a report every year. Hmm.
So here, uh, the number of crimes you said, I think, as I remember,
Mm.
but we have one.
So what they're saying here, they're using rich not to mean wealthy, but to mean um, full of value, valuable in some way.
Mm,
Um, so we sometimes talk about richness in relation to flavor, and I think they're using it in a similar way here. Like this is quite a rich stew or a rich sauce that I'm eating. It's very tasty. They're kind of saying something similar, but in terms of the picture, it's rich. That is, it's got lots of detail or it's got lots of things about it that it will interest or engage the person who's receiving that picture.
so it means value. You said more valuable. A richer picture means more. But why
Yeah,
why he?
full of whatever they might value in a picture.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. So what the earlier sentence is actually talking about is two different kinds of information. So information such as unemployment rates or number of crimes, that's like statistical information. But then they're also putting that alongside people's thoughts and feelings. So that's more like qualitative information.
mhm,
Like what have people said they think or feel about these bigger patterns and these things that are happening
perfect.
in their lives.
Mm,
So bringing those together, that's what that together, it's kind of a shorthand way of saying bringing together these different kinds of information, we're now giving you uh, a more detailed picture. Um,
perfect. Yeah, I got it.
mm, mm.
An
So
Arctic. Yeah,
we would say this Antarctic. Um,
Antarctic. Yeah,
yeah, and it is from the Arctic. It's the opposite. Like Antarctic is like anti-Arctic. The Arctic is one region
yeah.
of the Earth. The Antarctic is the opposite region. It's at the other end of the
So,
world. So these words were created in Europe, and so for them there was no Antarctic.
mm,
There was only the Arctic.
yeah,
But when they found a place that was as cold as the Arctic at the other end of the world, they called it the Antarctic. So the one that's north is always the simpler one,
yeah.
Arctic.
Perfect. And
Um,
also, yeah, I got it.
yeah, so the Arctic is actually that part of the world that is I don't know exactly how they define it, but they draw a circle on the globe, and basically within that circle, it's kind of a climate circle. It's always going to be cold within that circle. And Greenland, I think a large part of Greenland is inside the Arctic
Yeah,
Circle.
exactly. Yeah, and so we got it. without thinking
Because they're talking about
in the
the
future.
Arctic, that is something that's happened in the past. So what they're saying is that in the Arctic, that careless exploitation in the past has damaged, so up to this
So
point, has
yeah.
damaged the fragile
Mm.
ecosystem.
So
But
do you just choose it because of this past sorry, present
mm,
perfect tense? Because present
it's
tense is about something that happened started from the past and now it is continues until now.
they're also it's also because it is that, but they're also setting up an implied contrast. So the Arctic has had maybe a lot more human intervention. So places like Greenland, for example, have had people living on them for, you know, hundreds or thousands of years. Whereas the Antarctic has been, until recently, not visited very much. So that part of that is maybe assumed background, like we're setting up a contrast between what happened in the past and what might happen in the future with the Antarctic.
Yeah, perfect. And also these ones, which one do you choose here?
Um, while
But it shouldn't
so
have any comma before while. I was thinking about while, but no, I don't know when should we put comma before while and when we shouldn't, or maybe I'm mistaken.
I think in this case it probably doesn't need a comma, because it's part of the circumstances. So while here is it ends up being like a prepositional phrase that is talking about the circumstances in which they're going to be developing the region. So they're developing the region while also caring for the very special nature of the environment. I think it doesn't necessarily need a comma, but I think in usage, a lot of sentences like this will put.
Yeah, it is incorrect actually when I check that. I don't know, for example,
Hmm.
I decided to take a nap under my desk while everyone
Yeah.
else was in the me. So this one is obvious to be honest. I understand this one. But
So this is only when while means at the same time.
oh, at the
When
same
when
time.
you're when you're using it to not give us circumstantial information, then the comma might come into play. Um,
Yeah.
so do use a comma before while when you mean whereas or although. So if you're introducing a contrast, then
Mhm.
you
Yeah.
would also potentially use the comma. But if it's just a preposition, like it's just the circumstances.
And about when while is coming at the beginning is can you explain it? But it said that while
Mm,
my sister prefers key lime, I don't know what is this. I think it's a
mm.
pie. I prefer chocolate cake. So can we use? I mean, assume that we don't use while doesn't mean whereas or also. So can we
Yeah.
use it like this always?
So that is kind of a situation where it while is whereas or although.
Oh,
Um,
also. Okay.
whereas my sister prefers key lime pie, that is, you're setting up a concession. I concede that someone else does this, but I do this. So it's a way of structuring the information where you can acknowledge a contrast, but
So
then you
mm,
land the sentence on the main point. So the main point in that sentence is that I prefer chocolate cake, but you're introducing some additional contrasting information there, which is that other people prefer other things, but I prefer chocolate cake.
can do you think that we can use also here?
Although my sister prefers, I think whereas would be better. But
Whereas.
um, yeah, but in some sentences where they use while, you could also potentially use although.
Yeah, I wanted to show another ones that I can't find. Yeah, I think it's this ones. Yeah. Uh, so here they were grinding and watching while one man laughed. It's because this one has
Mm,
happened at the same time. Yeah.
that's right. So they were grinning and watching. So one group of people were like smiling and
Yeah,
looking
I got it.
on.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. Yeah, great. Now I understand the rest. Perfect. And let us show. This one,
But
yeah.
you will see so many examples where people break that rule because they don't, it's not a consistently used rule.
So here,
So
yeah, here he didn't use the comma because it is at the same time, or
yeah, so this one is right because it's they're trying to do these things at the same time. What's challenging here though, what makes it feel a little bit maybe more troublesome than some of the other examples is that there is an implied contrast in the background, right?
exactly.
Between, development and destruction.
Hmm.
So while grammatically this is just about the circumstances, they're trying to do this while this is happening at the same time. Um, it it because of the semantic content, it's extra confusing.
Perfect. And also here, we can use besides. Yep.
I think we have to use
Yeah.
because the Antarctic is less accessible than the Arctic, it is still largely undamaged by humans.
Yeah, you're right now. I got it now.
Hmm. You
And
could
also
you could actually reverse the order there. You could say the Antarctic is largely undamaged by humans because it is
less
less
access.
accessible than the
Perfect.
Arctic. Mm.
I have. So which one do you choose here? So we know that it has been discovered. So have
Have
been discovered.
already been
Have
discovered.
already been
Yeah.
discovered. And
Mm.
why we cannot use yet discovered
Um, well, firstly, it would have to be have yet to be discovered.
or have yet to be? After yet, we
Mm.
always use to be. I don't know. I didn't understand how to use
So
yet.
you, yeah, so yet to be, or yet to do, using the infinitive form of a verb with yet, you're talking about the future in a certain way. You're thinking about what may be the case in the future,
So
but it's not yet happened.
so here punitive damages have yet to be awarded.
Awarded,
What does
yeah.
punitive means? I mean, if you damage something, you will be punished, yeah?
So in this context, someone has lost a court case, um, but they haven't yet been told they have to pay um, damages. And punitive damages are damages that exist just to punish them for their wrongdoing rather than to restore someone else's losses. So if you sue someone, you might be asking, okay, this person, they drove their car into my
House, for example.
house. So I want the costs back to fix my house,
Yeah.
but I
Um,
also I'm asking for more money because I want to punish them for causing me all of this distress and all of these
oh,
problems.
because now I can't sleep very well because of the trauma. So
So
punitive damages means the extra money.
and it's something that a judge has to say,
Decide.
yes, you can have extra money, not just the costs.
Oh, that is called
Mm.
punitive damages.
Yeah,
And have yet to be, it means that it should be.
it means that maybe that we expect it to happen, but it hasn't happened yet.
I mean, in this country or everywhere in the world,
In this case, they're talking about one specific court case.
or one specific court case, yeah.
Yeah.
And
So what we're probably waiting to hear is whether the judge is going to decide, these people need to pay you a small amount of money or a large amount of money.
oh,
We already
perfect.
know that they've lost their case, but we might make them pay more or less.
A special case, these ones. I mean, we are in a
So
ceremony or something.
I would imagine that it could be about a prize, or it could be about something like a job or a residency or a fellowship, like a role somewhere that, they might have announced we've got a new fund that will pay to
Artist.
support one artist per year in our gallery to come and be a resident artist, but that hasn't yet been filled. They haven't selected who that's going to be yet.
What is the meaning of resident artist? It means that just stay there and just as an employee, is it?
Yeah, in effect, it usually means some payment, not usually wages, more like a stipend or an award. So it's not like you're there for a certain number of hours and you get paid by the hour or, a salary or something like that. It's more that we'll give you access to a workspace here, and we'll pay you some money to be associated with our university or our
Hmm.
gallery or whatever.
And what is
Um,
this one? The last one is weird. The circle has yet to be a square. The circle cannot be a square.
this is
Weird one.
a really weird idiomatic English thing.
You see,
So
is it
this comes from the geometric idea of squaring the circle.
squaring the
Um,
circle? You see?
um, it's a problem, a geometrical problem. Yeah, you've got them there. But it's become like an idiomatic,
Like this.
like a difficult problem to solve. Um, and so if you talk about squaring the circle, you're talking about there's a problem that hasn't yet been
Oh, I
solved.
got it. Squaring the
Yeah.
circle. Now I got it. I got it.
And it's kind of used as a metaphor. It could refer to any kind of problem, but
Yeah,
they'll talk about squaring the circle.
yeah,
It's a
I got it. Perfect. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, I got it. Perfect. So, yeah, I thought it is literally a square. So, no, it's not. So, and what about the last one? What is your idea about the last one?
Many people
Internationally banned,
believe.
I think, yeah.
Mm,
I think the
Yeah.
answer was this one. But
y-
what
Yeah.
what is the let me show you the answer.
Mm.
So, but we have one issue here.
I think a closer definition of exploitation would be
Exploitation.
to use up resources. So if you're talking about exploitation of people, it's to kind of use them in an abusive or misusing way. Whereas to talk about exploitation of natural resources, like in this context, it's just to use them up.
Use all
Um,
of them up. Okay.
yeah, or to start using them in a way that maybe isn't sustainable. That's
Mm,
kind of what's implied here.
perfect. Yeah, I got it.
Mm.
Now let us go to the three.
So when we're talking about something like a way that is a manner, we could talk about a change in the manner or a change to the manner.
So we can use
So,
two here, maybe.
yeah, two would also be okay. A change to the way. But in is probably more common in usage. A change in the way that they do this, a change
So
in the steps that are taken. Yeah.
big
Um,
change beyond our expectation. Is it correct?
then you'd be talking about a
For example,
change.
my supervisor asked me to change some part of this project,
Mm,
revise it actually, but the change should be beyond my expectation. Can I say that?
a change beyond. You
Or
could talk about changes beyond expectations. Changes beyond expectation. In some circumstances, yeah.
but
Um,
usually people don't use it. I mean,
yeah,
as a native, what is your idea?
I think you could say, like, you could say, if your supervisor came back to you and said, you know, you've made changes well beyond the expectations I
Well
had.
beyond, perfect. Yeah, well beyond. Yeah,
Um,
that was
yeah,
perfect.
but in this situation, it's got to be a change in
In
the way that they do
change in
something,
the way. Yeah,
or possibly a change to the way would also
perfect.
work.
That's
Mm.
okay. And what is your idea about this one?
Okay, so because of where this fits, we need to use the ing form, I think. Oh, screen concealing the identity.
Yeah, this is a weird one. It said to
Uh,
conceal. I don't know why.
it could be either, actually. I think it's in here to conceal means in order to conceal. That's why they've chosen that one.
So
So
can yeah.
there, it's actually a reason as well as a process. So a major change involved the use of blind auditions with a screen to conceal the identity of the candidate from the jury. So the screen is being introduced in order to conceal.
So Adam, can
Um,
I want to use this one in, for example, my project. So I said that I will use aluminium to increase the uh, I don't know, ductility of the structure. Is it correct?
mhm.
Two.
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. That is what I am saying. Great.
What makes this example a little harder is that in maybe in informal usage, concealing feels like it would fit just as well.
Yeah.
Because if you're talking about a screen concealing the identity of the candidate, the fact that that's kind of happening in the continuous present, that also works
Yeah.
grammatically. So this is an example where I see why to conceal is preferred because it's about um, the idea of doing something in order to achieve something else,
Mm.
but concealing in usage would work here as, just as well.
A- And also, Adam, we find that the screen increased. Uh,
Yeah, so the increase is the noun version, whereas in this case, the screen is the noun, and this is a verb, increases. The screen increases the
but
probability
the
a
probability a
woman
woman. So here the answer, if you check, it will be
will be
yeah.
advanced.
What can you explain why? What does that mean?
Mm.
Will be advanced here? Why it use will be advanced?
So we're imagining like this whole situation is um a series of tests that a candidate to join an orchestra goes through, like auditions, and other tests. And we imagine that each of those forms a stage in the recruitment process. So to advance to the next stage, or to the next round, we're imagining a kind of competitive set of steps. So the probability that a woman will be advanced, it's about we're using that future tense, will be, um, because we're talking about things that are probable and trying
Probable,
to
yeah,
figure out what's
will be.
probable, not things that
So when it is probably it should be would because this is imaginary.
mm, the probability a woman would advance out of certain preliminary ranks. I think in this case, uh, that that would is like a modal, whereas when you're talking about the probability of something, you're actually trying to measure something rather than signal uncertainty. You're actually talking about something that you've measured. So will be is a better fit here.
Yeah,
But
perfect.
I agree. Would advance, will be advanced. I think that the other thing is will be advanced is passive, is a passive construction. Um, so the point is not that the woman herself advances, but that she is advanced through the process. That is, she's been selected
She,
by
yeah,
the judges or by the people who are auditioning. So that makes it a slightly better choice here as well.
yeah. And another thing, when this part.
It must be some way of interpreting data when you're dealing with individuals that are moving through a series of steps on a path. So you must have some kind of branching logic there where there's an overall probability, but then there's also what happens to someone once they've started moving through that set of steps. The probabilities probably shift at different steps depending on whether they've succeeded or failed at earlier steps. So I imagine it's some kind of framework for interpreting the data. I don't know exactly how they would do that.
Yeah,
That's beyond my expertise.
yeah. And also here, which one do you choose? I can explain between 30% and 15%. Sorry, you have to start from here, I think. Using data on
Using data.
orchestra percent, the switch to blind audition can explain between, I think, increase,
Increase,
yeah,
yeah.
uh,
So they're talking about an improvement.
an improvement, yeah.
Um, you know,
Uh,
if we assume that there, are the same number of men and women and roughly the same number of qualified people, then we would hope to see roughly the same percentages of women in orchestras as men. Um, So what they're saying is that they've found ways, the blind audition is one of the main ways to increase that percentage.
Yeah, and
So what they're adding more information. So the screen increases the probability a woman will be advanced, increases by 50% the
oh, by
probability.
50%. Yeah.
Yeah. So they're giving us more detail on how much the probability will increase.
So EY by 2% by drinking coffee.
So what you would say is the caffeine tablets increase by 7% the performance of elite athletes. Um,
Increases by 50%. So
yeah, my coffee increases by 2% my ability to concentrate.
why we use by? Is it, I mean, can we remove by? I mean, it has
Um,
the same meaning. But
it
you
it
said
would be
increase. Yeah.
increases to increase by, if we're talking about a percentage, we usually would use that if we were talking formally, more formally. You could say increases 50% the probability, and most people would understand what you were saying, but it would be kind of skipping a step. It would be an elision. Um,
Yeah, I got it.
I
Perfect.
think that this additional piece of information, when we use sentences like this, often comes after, increases the probability a woman will be advanced out of certain preliminary rounds by 50%. So it can actually be put, it can become a preposition right at the end. I think the reason why they've put it here and used this construction is because by the time you get to the end of this sentence, you've forgotten that we're talking about probability. So it becomes ambiguous. Um,
Yeah, I got it. Because of this, they put.
Drinking coffee increases by 2% the study time, the effective study time of an individual student
Oh, yeah, that's a
on
good one.
average, you might
So,
say.
so I will, from now on, I will use by. I will add
Yeah.
by. Yeah, great. And let me show you.
Okay, so existentialism is a philosophical movement that became prominent in the 20th century, particularly in the years following World War II.
So,
That's right. So in this case, following, even though it's usually a verb to follow, it's become kind of a preposition here. It's adding meaning to years. It's telling us something about those years. Um, or maybe we might even talk about it as an adjective, really, because the years following World War II, that's giving us the something about. So it's sitting somewhere in between. You might also use here if it were available, particularly in the years immediately after World War II.
mm,
So if you said the years after World War II, it could be, you could ask yourself, which years? Was it a decade later? Was it 2 decades later? But if you said immediately after World War II, or it's equivalent to saying following World War II, so just after.
so,
Um, yeah, you would say maybe more like in the years following my PhD, following the award of my PhD or the awarding of my PhD, I worked as a maths teacher in a high school. Yeah.
but it doesn't mean that it was immediate, yeah? It might be 6 months or 7 months after
It's
receiving the award.
relatively soon after, because if you think about to follow, it's something that's coming after. And in this context, it would mean maybe not, maybe it didn't become a prominent movement until a couple of years later, but it was pretty soon after. I think when we're talking about historical periods, we're always talking a little bit loosely, a little bit vaguely.
Mm.
Um,
Yeah, and
yeah.
I have another example. Uh,
You'd use that retrospectively. So in the months after Trump's speech, many countries um, declared bankruptcy. Yeah, so it's past tense. We're talking about it. We're narrating events in the past, and we're sort of setting out an order in time. But if we're talking kind of from the present, you might say something different, like in the months since Trump's inaugural speech, we have seen numerous bankruptcies around the world.
yeah,
Yeah.
perfect. And this one's. they uh, the choices they
Mhm.
make. Yep,
Yeah.
and we
So
don't
we
have
make
set.
choices and we take actions. This is
Yeah,
one
perfect,
of those, just
perfect. We
that's
have to
how
remember.
we think
Yeah,
about those
we
things
make choices.
and
Yeah,
we take actions. Yeah.
perfect. And which one do you choose here?
Predetermined
And can you explain what
essence.
does this mean rather than having some predetermined essence? What does that mean, this combination?
Um, Decided in advance. So hu the idea is about who decides what a human being is or should be. In this philosophy, humans decide that by making their own choices and by taking their own actions. So it's a predetermined essence, is kind of what the existentialists are arguing against. They're saying humans don't have an essence, they make their own nature out of their choices.
So essence is related to intrinsic.
Yeah, we're imagining a deep internal quality that controls to some extent what
So
humans can
can you
do.
explain about this part? It says the conflict is the essence of drama. What does that mean?
Mm. What they're saying is that for something to be dramatic, for let's say a TV show or a stage play to actually have that dramatic quality that makes it interesting or engaging for an audience, there has to be conflict. So conflict is the essence of drama, is a way of talking about
Mm.
what is what is needed or what is the core part
Can you give
of.
us a movie that is dramatic and has this quality and we see a lot of
Okay,
conflict?
so I was watching The Avengers with my child, and
Is it an
one
action
of
movie or
yeah, but there's an
Avengers?
essential conflict in that film.
This guys. Oh, okay.
Firstly, there's the conflict between the superheroes and the supervillains. There's these creatures that want to destroy the world, and the Avengers want to stop them. So there's one conflict, but there's also conflict between the Avengers. They don't
Mm.
agree on how to act.
Yeah,
So
I got it now.
there's lots of drama, we might say, lots of
Drama. Okay.
dramatic interaction that some of it is comic and some of it is dramatic. Some of it is about feeling, some of it is about, humor. Um, yeah.
So and
So you can't imagine a successful film without some form of conflict
yeah, when
in
you
the
said that
story.
we see a lot of drama, are you talking specifically about events? Because drama means events, yeah. When you
Drama
said,
is more about the representation of events. So it's
mm,
more about when we want a story or we want to see a performance, we're looking
mm,
for drama.
yeah, but there
Um,
is a stage and something. Yeah, are you talking about that drama?
yeah, yeah, or a film. I think if we're talking about drama in everyday life, we often use it more negatively. That is, if someone is causing drama at your workplace, it means that they're complaining or they're starting conflicts that don't need to.
Oh, I thought that it means that they are not honest and they are making something. It's like a drama.
Yes, yeah, so they might be misrepresenting what's happening so that it's more like a story and
Yeah.
less like ordinary life, right?
So when someone tell you that, okay, don't make a drama in this place, what does that mean? It means that
Mm,
that person,
don't, yeah, don't be dramatic. Don't make drama. That means don't cause conflict. Don't make people feel
oh,
bad.
don't
Just,
make
yeah.
conflicts. Okay.
Or it can also mean um stop showing so much feeling. Like it's inappropriate
I haven't
to
seen such a thing. Okay, so you mean that if someone, what kind of feeling? For example, is it talk about, for example, if your professor is talking to you, you should be, your face, you shouldn't make a lot of smiles and something like that. You should be like a
it's
cold.
it's more like, let's say, like if you're in an office and you're all professionals and you have a meeting where things don't go very well, one way of responding is, as a professional, you think about, okay, this is what we're going to do next. These are the actions we're going to take. I'm disappointed, but I'm going to move on and get my job done. If you were making it into a drama, if you were being dramatic, you might burst into tears and then talk about how horrible that person is who disagreed with you, and then start a kind of some kind of uh, interpersonal conflict out of something that's actually about your job.
So Adam, I didn't know this.
Mm.
I didn't know this part. So you said that if someone, okay, bursts into tears and just show a lot of feeling, oh, I don't, I can't continue the job. So,
Mm.
so
So
that
if
is
we wanted to
making a drama.
dismiss them, yeah, if we want to dismiss them and say that their feelings aren't justified, we'd say they're being dramatic. That is,
What do you mean
they're
dismissing? Fire them, you
overacting.
mean? Do you mean
No,
fire
no,
them?
no. I mean, if we want to say that we don't take that seriously, that we don't believe, you know, if I don't know, if you're in a meeting and someone's grandfather dies and they get the phone call to say your grandfather's just died and they start crying, you wouldn't say, oh, you're being dramatic. You'd say, okay, that's sad. They're sad for a good reason. But if I don't know, if someone
I know
says that,
some people, to be honest, when it happens, they were crying. No, I'm not kidding. So, I mean, for example, one person's mother, for example, died, and that girl was crying in the meeting, for example. So this is not, we cannot call that girl as a dramatic person.
no, I think if they're crying for a really good reason, you'd usually say
We don't
that
know. Yeah, but
that's
I think so.
a reasonable response.
So it
Like
was,
because anyone would feel strongly in that
and that girl
situation.
was promoted next month. I remember. Because, okay, so if someone,
Watching a television show and there's drama, there's interpersonal conflict, that's a good thing. You want that to happen. But when you're in a meeting at work and there's drama, that's always a bad thing.
a bad thing. So, okay, but when we have a meeting, we always make some jokes sometimes. And
That's different. That's humor rather than drama.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
But if it is negative, or someone is crying, you call it, you might call it a drama if it is not sincere, for example.
If it's not sincere or it seems inappropriate, um,
I don't
you know,
understand in an appropriate way. What does that mean? For example, okay, I have a meeting with my supervisor, and for example, his grandfather died. For example, I hope not, but okay, I will start crying. So it is called dramatic.
if someone was observing you and they felt that your reaction was out of proportion or it was unnecessarily personal, or maybe that there wasn't a good reason to feel what you were feeling, then they might say you're being dramatic.
Oh, okay.
You're over dramatizing the situation. Or like for example, I once had a friend, she had some research money that she could disperse, and one of the things that she did with the money was hire a research assistant. And she had a contract. That person was going to work for only 3 months. At the end of that 3 months, she didn't rehire that person to do anything else. And that person said, what did I do wrong? Why did you fire me? It's because you hate me.
Oh,
It,
that is, yeah, that
yeah.
is
So
reasonable.
they're turning it into an interpersonal
Yeah,
issue.
not business point of view. Yeah.
Exactly.
So,
Yeah.
but okay, I remember that there was a girl, and she said that I don't like people who make drama in their life.
Hmm.
So what does that mean? I didn't understand what she said. It means that
It
she had some partner, and she made some lies about their life, and they cry. Is it?
it means that they're manufacturing interpersonal conflict. So they're instead of like, of course, we all disagree and we find people that we don't like, but some people will go looking for trouble. That's what they enjoy or what they need for a psychological reason. Um, and some relationships work that way as well, right? People start fights with their partner.
No, I don't
Um,
know, to be honest. So you mean that, okay, that person, I mean, her previous ex, for example, was fighting with her, and he was making some conflicts. I mean,
mm,
that is the meaning of drama here, yeah, with a partner.
it sounds like he was being
I
if
mean,
he's
emotional,
generating if he's creating the conflict, then he's being um
dramatic.
dramatic.
Oh, I got
Yeah.
it. I think
Mm.
I got it. Yeah. Yeah, it's a
But
weird
I
word. I didn't know the meaning.
I guess to understand it, we're thinking about drama is a positive thing when it's happening in a story, but it's usually a negative thing if
In a
it's
real
happening
life.
in real life.
Yeah, I got it. Now I got it. Perfect. And
Hmm.
here it said that extent specialists do not believe there is any meaning or which one do you choose?
Overarching.
What does that mean, overarching? Overarching.
I guess a larger meaning or bigger purpose to events. Um, so what they're saying is that God doesn't give meaning to the world, but also human nature doesn't give meaning to the world. There's no overarching meaning. We actually make the meaning for ourselves.
So it's but
Um,
overarching means comprehensive. When let me show you.
mm,
Is it correct?
all embracing.
Overarching.
All
Yeah.
embracing.
Yeah, so an
Oh, it's
overarching principle is one that affects everything. So a meaning or a purpose that's given by God, if you're someone who believes that, and a lot of philosophers before the 20th century believe that, a lot of religious people believe that, then you would say there is an overarching meaning, and that meaning is given by my religion.
so
Um,
how do you can you pronounce it again? Overarching.
overarching.
Overarching. So overarching means that, for example, okay, when we have a, I don't know, sun, the purpose of the sun is to give us some heat, I mean, during the day. So, and photosynthesis process. So they believe that there is no reason that we have some. I didn't understand this part. When it seems that overarching
Yeah,
meaning, what
they
does that mean?
they would say that it's almost like saying that there's no inherent meaning in the fact that the sun rises and sets. The meaning comes from the decisions we make for what to do.
Oh, okay, I got it now. I got it.
And I guess if you think about it in a different frame, like if you're a religious person who believes that there's an afterlife, that gives meaning to your actions in the world.
Hmm.
Existentialists are saying that what gives meaning to our actions in the world is the decisions that we make in the world. So we have to decide to be cruel or kind here for our own reasons, not because of some other external principle.
So otherwise, how do they follow the rules? Or maybe they don't follow the rules. I didn't know that. Because if because of the reason, maybe they think that one of the rules cannot be correct.
They
But
think that we need to make the rules for ourselves. And
oh,
when
for
people,
ourselves, yeah, I
they
got it.
say when people the idea is that if people say to you, "Oh, I'm just following the rules," but they haven't made any decision for themselves why they should follow those rules, that they're acting in what they call bad faith. That is, they're pretending that they don't have agency or control when in fact they do.
So, and Adam, when you said overarching,
Hmm.
overarching meaning actually. It means that it has a purpose. Yeah, is it correct?
Well, they say overarching meaning or purpose. So both of those things could be overarching.
Mhm.
So an overarching meaning might be like, what is the bigger meaning of life?
Oh,
An
the bigger
overarching
meaning.
purpose might be, what is the bigger thing that we are all supposed to be doing here on Earth?
Oh, yeah, I got it.
Hmm.
And so this place is the
Burden.
burden. Yeah, but yeah, now it's correct. Now it makes sense. Perfect.
Asking, you look at people and you ask yourself, who are they attributing agency to? Who do they think is actually in charge? And it can really help you see um, how they see the world.
Hmm.
So I think this is quite a useful philosophy, actually.
Yeah.
Um,
So, and ex can you pronounce this one again? Sorry.
existentialism.
Existentialism.
Yeah. So it
Existentialism.
comes from the idea that existence is
Yeah.
before essence. So the fact that we
Existentialism.
exist in the world, we have to make choices, we have to act in the world, that comes first.
Hmm. Yeah.
Um,
Perfect. And let me.
Yep. So I think we should start with the very first sentence because figuring out what this is about in general helps with some of the other decisions. So when you're talking about a culinary landscape, this is a very vague way of saying what it is that we eat when we are trying to survive in space. So if it's culinary, it relates to food and the
Yeah,
preparation of
cooking,
food.
I think, yeah. But
That's
I don't
right.
know what is
So
the meaning of culinary landscape. Landscape is
yeah,
a, I don't know.
it's a kind of dead metaphor that like they'll talk about the higher education landscape or the the arts sector landscape, and it's being used to talk about what is the situation or the status quo in a particular place or context. So that what they're saying is that the things that we prepare and eat when we're in space, um, there's been a transformation. We've changed the options for eating. Um, so, rather than maybe having um, kind of eating paste out of a tube, the
It is a paste. I don't understand. What do you mean? We,
thing is we have to be ready for the rest of the paragraph because it's going to be about how
mm,
it's different, how
yeah.
the food that's available in space has changed.
What do they
Um,
eat? I think pills or I don't know.
well, this is what the next sentence is about. The early days of space travel, and it has to be were marked because it's past tense
And what does that
by
mean, marked here? I mean, it is
to
notified or
okay, so when we're
remembered.
talking to mark days, marking days is like the passage of time. So those days were marked by, that is, um, you're kind of imagining that each day ha is made up of these steps that leave a kind of mark, and that eating meals is the way that we mark days, that is past the time. It's a This is a really hard one because this is almost idiomatic. It's not easy to explain. But we mark days. That's where this comes from. The idea that time passes and routine activities, they give us a sense of the passing of days. So
So
they're saying,
just one question before. So here, when I searched this one's a typical feature.
yeah, but no, that's a distinguishing mark. That's the thing. What we're talking about is the idea of marking the day or marking days. That is making a mark on a calendar as you pass through the day. That could be the routine activity. It's kind of metaphorical.
Mm, so
I feel like it's really hard to explain, but to say that my days were marked by something is to
so it
say
is
that
metaphoric. You're right. So it is kind of, yeah,
these were
you're right.
things that typically happened on an ordinary day during
Mm,
that time.
perfect. Now I got it. Amazing.
Hmm.
Yeah. Uh,
So they're saying they were marked by simple utilitarian food options. So when you had your daily meals, what you were eating were things like freeze-dried meals and energy bars designed for efficiency rather than enjoyment. However, the quest for sustainable long-term space habitation
Quest
has
means what here? I
sparked.
mean request.
So you imagine it as like a big journey, a
Yeah.
big important journey, a
Yeah.
quest. So you're looking for something valuable. Um, and that they're, in this case, the thing that they're seeking is long-term space habitation. That is, people actually being able to live in space for a long time. Yeah, a long search. I
Yeah,
guess
but it is search. I mean, but here,
mm,
I, a lot the quest for sustainable long-term space. Are we searching?
it is a search because what they're trying to figure out is what technological and other means are necessary to allow us to live in space.
Oh, I got it now.
So
Perfect. And
so
also,
it's like a scientific quest actually, and
yeah.
technical quest.
And there is another one, a long search for, so it can be this ones. Okay, I got it.
Mm.
Perfect.
Yeah, it has all of these connotations of being kind of an epic journey, like a great big undertaking.
But it can't
Um,
be. You can't eat a
um,
lot of foods. Yeah.
so the quest for sustainable long-term space habitation, that is where we collectively as people have been for a long time trying to figure out how to survive in space, but also we've been trying to figure out how to live there for a longer stretch of time, has sparked innovation in space cuisine. So it's led to new food, basically, options in space. Um, and then we get into some of the detail. What are some of the innovations? Advanced hydroponic systems and bioregenerative life support systems are being developed to enable the cultivation of fresh produce. Yeah.
So why produce? Why not products?
Fresh
Produce.
product, fresh products would be okay here, but when we talk about produce specifically, we are talking about things um like vegetables and fruits, things that are grown.
So let
So
me
it's
show you here something. Here when we talk about, oh, you said that produce means fresh fruits. You're right. Yeah, I
yeah.
didn't know that. Yeah.
So it's a very specific meaning of the word
So
produce.
product
Um,
can be anything, even in car industry. You're right.
yeah, so a product is more neutral. It could refer to lots of different things, whereas produce is, if we're talking about produce as a noun, it is fresh fruit and vegetable, or maybe not fresh, but it's fruit and vegetable.
Yeah, perfect.
Mm.
And also these ones, uh, I think we got the rest. And yeah, let me go to the, I think. So here we don't have problem, but what is your idea about these ones?
If you
Do you
have
have any of?
any of these symptoms, yeah. So I guess there are some different options with symptoms. So if you're talking about an illness, for some illnesses, the advice they'd give you is if you have all of these symptoms, it means you've got a problem. But if you've only got one or two of them, it probably doesn't. But in the case of heart disease, they're saying any of these
So can we
symptoms.
say if you have each of these symptoms? It is
Yeah,
wrong.
you
But
could say
no
you could
one
say
say
that.
each of these systems, but that any of this system in general
Um,
speaking.
so you've got two options. Each of these symptoms or all of these symptoms, that's one option. Which would mean that they're saying you have to have them all
Or one of
for it to
them.
be considered dangerous. But if you say if you have any, it has just one of them is enough for you to be concerned.
Yeah, perfect.
Um,
And Adam, can you explain about this one? Get medical help far away or right away? I don't know. Right away
right
is correct.
away,
So,
right
okay,
away.
yeah, you're right. Right away is correct. What is the meaning of
Mm.
far away? It means that very far from two lands in the earth are far.
It,
Is it? Yeah, is it
it's all
correct?
about distance, yeah.
Distance, yeah.
Whereas this is about urgency,
Perfect.
so we want to
And
say right away.
yeah, which one do you choose here?
Cutting down on. So
Why
that
yeah.
that phrasal verb to cut down on means to consume less of or use
So,
less of something.
so can we
Yeah.
say I have to cut down the amount of fats to be less, to be more slim? Is it correct?
Yep. Yeah. In order to slim down, you can
Cut
cut
down
down
on
on
fats, yeah.
fatty food. Yeah.
Fatty food, yeah. Yeah, correct.
You might use it in other contexts, like maybe you're a lawyer and you're telling your friend, I really need to cut down on cocaine because I'm getting distracted and
I have to do that. Okay.
that
Yeah,
is, I need to do less of it.
I'm kidding. No, I don't have, I will not pay money for those stuff. Okay. So here, another thing. When now the Trump is cutting down on several agencies in the US, is it correct? How can we say that? Cutting
I
down on
would say
budgets?
I would say that you're cutting budgets rather than cutting down on. So cutting down on it's less formal and it's also more about reducing your intake of something. Whereas cutting a budget is about reducing the amount of
Halting
money.
or yeah.
Yeah,
So I didn't understand this part. Can you say again? So cutting down, so we
is
cannot say
reducing your intake, whereas cutting something
oh
in
intake.
general, yeah.
Mm,
So to cut down on but you might
cutting.
also sometimes cut down on things that you produce, like cut down on emissions. In like I redesigned this car's engine to cut down on emissions.
Cut down on emission.
Um,
Yeah, perfect.
but cutting, you tend to cut a budget rather than to cut down on it.
Yeah, perfect. So here and connected with friends. So is staying connected
Staying.
can, yeah, can be correct, yeah,
Mm,
which is correct.
yeah,
And uh to be honest, I didn't understand what is,
you from them.
yeah, mm, that's okay.
Okay, the once thriving Coast
Sorry,
Coral
I
Bay.
what is coral reefs? Is it the whole thing or whole structures? Is it
Yeah.
live? What is that?
So the reef is actually what's left over as the coral grows, because
Dead
um
parts.
it
Okay.
forms an external shell, and the living thing is the colorful bit, but then it when it dies, more grows on top. Or and so you end up with a reef, which is like a wall of coral or a block of coral,
So
dead coral, but with live coral on top.
so which one
So
is live now? I mean, this one is dead or live. I mean, I don't know.
so the any of the parts that are kind of got color, but what they're growing on underneath is the old dead. So that effectively these living organisms create their own rock formations over hundreds and thousands of years. And that becomes a reef. They call it a reef. So it's like it's under the water, but it's kind of like a wall or a,
Yeah,
um,
exactly. Is it true?
yeah. So what's underneath the coral is no longer alive. It's become like rock,
Mm,
but it's a we might call it like a geological formation that's been created by these life forms. Um,
So this one, coral reef here means,
it's coral reefs, a haven for marine life.
mm,
So the other thing is that not just the coral lives there. Um, a whole lot of fish and crabs, they like to live in amongst these
perfect.
coral reefs. And a
Yeah,
haven is like a place that shelters them. It's protective. So often where there's a reef, um, the worst of the ocean currents and waves will be stopped at the reef, and there'll be a lagoon behind it, uh, where a whole range of different creatures can live. So that's
so
kind of what they're doing.
I searched the word haven here, but
Mm.
I couldn't understand what does that mean.
It really just means a safe space.
Safest space. Yeah.
So sometimes these kind of marine havens are created by g- other kinds of geological features. Like if there's a headland and then there's a kind of an eroded bay behind it, that can be sheltered from the weather and the rain and the waves. Uh, yeah,
Perfect.
so a,
Yeah.
a garden can be a haven, somewhere
Haven
safe.
from the noise
Mm,
and bustle of the city. So
mm.
is coral reefs climate or vision? Which one is that?
So it can't be anything but haven there because
Haven.
yeah, it's for marine life. And a reef obviously is not a climate. It's created by climate. It's possible because the water is the right temperature.
Mm.
Um,
So,
Currents and the waves and the other things that happen in the ocean, it changes. Like the water is shallower and warmer because it's water near the surface. Um, it kind of the outer part of the reef blocks
it
the
changes
strong
the
currents.
environment. Yeah, perfect. I got.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and
great. I got it. Perfect. Yeah, and also,
I don't know if you've been to a resort or any place where they've got coral reefs, but there's often, like in Sydney, there's the beaches that have these big waves. If there are reefs, the waves break out on the edge of the reef, and
mm,
then inside the reef is completely different. It's almost like a pool.
exactly. Yeah. So it will also help us not to be
Yeah.
so, and the local economy flourished on this. Which one do you choose?
Mm, so I
It
think
says
that
that
we're
influx. I don't know.
referring back to what they each year from spring through fall, clear warm waters played host to an array of sea creatures, from gentle sea turtles to colorful schools of fish, drawing divers and nature enthusiasts from across the globe. So this is the influx. The people come during the spring each year
Yeah.
as tourists, and the local economy flourished on this influx. Yeah.
So,
So so the water changes
but
and
influx,
brings
when I search that, this means that fact or something. Let me show you. The fact of a large number of people or things. Oh yeah, you're
arriving.
right. You're
Yeah.
right. Yeah. So it's expected as an influx of several thousand refugees over the next. Yeah, influx means coming people.
Mm,
So yeah,
mm. Yeah.
influx. You're right. And what about these ones?
The
Because
turn of the century marked the onset of a
crisis.
grave environmental crisis. Yeah.
Why? Because what is the meaning of grave in grave here?
Grave
Means
means
cemetery.
both serious and bad. Like
Uh,
it's a negative, um, but yeah, sort of seriousness.
so but when I search, so grave means bad. You said. I don't know. It has a place. Yeah.
It
No.
it
No.
means a seriously bad situation.
Seriously bad. Yeah. Yes. A
Yeah.
grave situations. Oh, I thought that this is talking about the
Yeah, so that's
dead
noun.
people. Yeah.
Yeah, as a noun, grave means the place that someone's buried, but as an adjective, if a situation is grave, it's bad. Sometimes you can talk about a grave expression, that is the look on someone's face. It's clear that something bad has happened,
So can
that
we say
they're
that,
both
for example,
serious and upset.
Canada will be in a grave situation by accepting the tariffs from United States? Can we say like this?
Yeah, yeah, you
Right.
could say that imposing tariffs will put the world economy in a grave situation.
Mm, yeah.
Hmm.
And the stock decline served as a grim
Reminder.
reminder.
Mm.
Why? I didn't understand this part if you explain.
So this is almost like a stock phrase, to serve as a grim reminder. So if something serves as a reminder, it brings to mind for us something that we shouldn't have forgotten, but perhaps we have. Um, and grim is often talked about. You often use that when it's a bad thing. It's something we don't want to have to remember, but we're being forced to. Grim is like grave.
Oh,
It's that kind of adjective.
so yeah, but let me show you something. Here, green means extremely bad.
Mm,
Look green. The
mm,
future looks green. The future
yeah.
of the uh world except USA is green. Yeah, it
I
doesn't
think
make sense.
the future of the USA is grim, to be honest. Unless you happen to already be rich.
But I think
Economies aren't like households. I don't think that reducing the debt, I think the place that the US has in the economic system, um, they're supposed to have a lot of debt. If they reduce the debt, they'll literally kill their country. Like they'll start killing people because some of the reasons they have debt is to keep the whole thing going.
mm, you're
And I
right.
think once that happens, their economy will contract because there'll literally be no one to buy things. I
But
reckon if they're not careful, they'll end up with some kind of major recession or even a
yeah,
depression.
recession might.
So what they're doing, what I think they're going to do is effectively strip mine the federal government and sell
Exactly.
it off.
Yeah,
And I
exactly.
think that will look for a while like it's a very good economic decision because there's a bunch of people who are going to buy in. Like they're going to sell 500 federal buildings. So private companies are going to come and buy those buildings and then lease them back to the government, and they'll get a boost in their profits and they'll get a boost in their share prices. Um, but you can only do that once. Once it's done, it will ruin everything.
Oh yeah,
Um,
I didn't think about this part.
that
I
that's
got
that's my feeling anyway. I could be wrong. I could be wrong.
no.
But I actually I think they're on the way to destroying some really important stuff in their own country.
Okay. And another thing, the stock decline served as a grim reminder. Okay. When you said grim reminder, so of the fragile interdependence between human activity and nature.
Mm.
Which is when we are talking about the stock, what is it refers to what actually? Can you explain about this
So
part? Because it is empty when I search yeah, this one's.
mm,
What is the meaning of stock?
stark means, in this case, it means like really obvious.
Oh, obvious.
Yeah, it's a stark decline. It's a decline that is clear to anyone. They can
Hmm.
see that and they're talking about the dramatic fall. We're using that word dramatic again, but in this case, we're using it to signal abrupt or quick. The dramatic fall in tourist arrivals and subsequent economic downturn for the town. So almost overnight, maybe only over a few years, there's a decline. So that's a stark decline. It's obvious, you can't miss it, you can't say it hasn't happened.
Yeah, but about
Mm.
the previous sentence, what is the meaning of dwindle here?
To approach an end, like to start to disappear.
Oh yeah, I think
Mm.
to become smaller, I say. Yeah,
Yeah, so they decrease, um, they
dwindle, yeah,
diminish,
diminish. They have
um,
dwindled to a tenth of its former size in the last 2 years.
and it tends to imply approaching some point where they'll no longer be what they once were.
So,
In this case, her hopes of success in the race, it must be like a running race or a swimming race or something like that.
so the swimming
Um,
race is under.
or or
Yeah,
it could be a some kind of sporting, I guess something that could be affected by weather.
weather, yeah, exactly. Something
Yeah.
that is. And here, to become less in a number, the community had dwindled to a tenth of its former size. It is,
Hmm.
for example, if it was 100, it is now 10. Yeah. For example, the
To a tenth? Yeah, that's right. Yeah. So you can see there that the example has that connotation of it being quite
so
a
can we say that the
substantial decline.
yeah, can we say that the budget of the US aid would be zero, dwindle to zero, would be dwindled
Um,
to zero.
I feel like in
Become
that case, we might not use dwindle because there's a clear and direct, like, causal. Someone chose to do that.
mm,
It's not a complex process.
yeah.
But if you were talking about university budgets dwindling because of a range of different factors all converging or some large macro trend, that might make more sense. Um,
So we usually
yeah.
talk about the populations you see here. The municipality's population has dwindled from
Mm,
40 to 24
yeah,
again.
so that's not that someone has cut the population, it's that people have left one by one.
Perfect, yeah.
Mm.
And uh,
So the coral has been bleached by the high temperatures, and so the creatures that people came to see are no longer there. They don't
oh,
they don't come back.
perfect. And efforts to revive.
Mm,
So we always say after a noun, with to, yeah, a verb with to.
mm. Efforts to revive the reefs and restore coral Bay's former glory are underway. So the main verb in that is actually are. Um, so we're
Are
talking
underway.
about, in this case, we're talking about efforts, and what are they efforts to do? They're efforts to revive something. So the phrase to revive is kind of explaining more about what those efforts are.
So can we say the efforts to mm, create a new products with
Mm,
like this in your, for example, postgraduate program will help you to uh, get a job in the future. Efforts
mm.
to. I wanted to learn how to use efforts to. Efforts to
We're
make a
often
products.
we're often talking about, because this is not very precise. It's not saying who exactly is doing it. It's saying there's groups involved. You might say that effort to patent a product during your PhD are likely to
To help
lead
you
to
to get a job.
success.
Yeah,
Yeah, or are more likely to lead to a job. So your individual effort rather than efforts. But yeah, similar construction.
perfect. So
Effort to understand the fundamental principles of your discipline are never wasted. Is never wasted. Effort to understand is never wasted.
efforts to understand. Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
Thank you, Adam. We didn't give you any break.